Good evening, everybody. Welcome to a special emergency Maize and Blue review podcast here on this Monday, Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. I'm joined by Josh Henschke, the publisher of Maize and Blue Review. I'm Dennis Fithian, and Josh, we have big news to let everybody in on.
Yes. Yeah. Big news. If this weekend wasn't big enough, just colossal news for the program moving forward with Jim Harbaugh coming back. It wasn't really necessarily in doubt that he wasn't coming back to begin with, but, having some sense of finality to this whole thing, especially, before the Broncos did all of this interviewing and all of this stuff, although he did speak to them via Zoom, but, just to have some finality in all of this stuff, Michigan getting all of those guys back. It's perfect timing to, just focus on the future now. I mean, Michigan's got a huge opportunity ahead of themselves for 2023 and to have, a sense of direction now, what they're going to go. I mean, that not only helps the team, it's going to help recruiting. It's really huge news. News that we expected for a little bit now. Wasn't necessarily expecting it today and how it came out, but all the same, it works. And this is a huge win for Michigan that's stacked up quite a few this offseason.
Josh, you said no doubt, but we'll get into that a little bit more. Let's just read what President Ono had to say. This is part of his tweet, and he said this is just within the hour. He said he is I just got off the phone with Coach Harbaugh, and Jim shared with me the great news that he's going to remain as the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines. That is fantastic news that I have communicated to our athletic director, Ward Manuel, with the hashtag Go Blue. So this isn't, we're hoping to get something signed or no one knows the future or anything. I mean, this is there doesn't seem any wiggle room here. While he doesn't say that he has a signed contract, Jim Harbaugh, I would take this, even though you said no doubt, anything else. Do you see any wiggle room in there or anything else?
No, especially with Harbaugh's follow-up statement where, he's saying he's excited to remain at Michigan and things like that. I mean, there's no wiggle room here. This is, as definitive as definitive gets. And, we are aware that a new contract is being worked on. And, the last that we heard over the weekend that it was getting pretty close to, getting the actual physical contract in front of him to sign. So with this news, it's either we haven't exactly heard yet, but I mean, either that this contract's going to be done relatively quickly, or the contract's done and they're just waiting to sign it. But either way, there's no wiggle room here. There's no open-ended statements or anything open to interpretation. This is pretty cut and dry here, Dennis. And hopefully, they'll get this contract situation figured out. I mean, now it's not going to be a huge distraction. And they can just focus on the future. And this is really what it is about. I think this program, in terms of its future, is better suited under Harbaugh's leadership than anyone else's right now. And this is, the perfect way to stabilize this is to take care of Harbaugh, contractually and as well as his staff too.
Well, let me ask you, because you seem like you kind of had, which is, I'm going to say this as a compliment, you kind of flatlined during this situation.
Yeah.
You weren't going too crazy, set it out, wild tweets, telling people, like, sometimes I was screaming and yelling, like, what is this? What's that? Why not? And you seem to have a calm hand at the wheel. Let's talk about this process a little bit. You said that, like with damage, do you think there's any damage to, this was a, whatever you want to call it, a dance, the contract and all this thing, a little damage? Because the fans, like, during this, and I get it, like, there's like, it felt like, being in limbo, that, the people would even say that the program is being held hostage. But now, that it's over, was that all was just a little bit too much, because everything was up in the air with this, and now that it's signed, everybody can kind of just take a deep breath. What's your opinion of any damage that may be done?
I don't get the sense that this is similar to what happened last year. I think I think last year, I think it was close to, that maybe, oh boy, there might be something to this, but this year kind of just felt different. The people that I spoke to this year compared to last year, tones were completely different. Confidence was completely different. And you also had Harbaugh's statements, what if you want to call them statements, about, no man knows the future, which I hope I never hear that line ever again. But I just don't think it was just different. This year was just different. I had a lot more confidence this year than I did last year. And I think as far as damage, I mean, maybe, but you obviously don't want to see this dragged out as long as it did. I mean, I think, could this have been wrapped up maybe a week or two earlier, or even, not even done at all? Yes. But I don't think there's going to be any long-term damage. You're coming off back-to-back Big Ten championship seasons, and obviously you don't want this kind of distraction happening. But at the same time, I think there's something you can build there. Michigan had a really positive recruiting weekend last weekend, and they had junior day coming up on the 22nd. So, with this out of the way, they can kind of really calm down some fears that recruits may or may not have. I think, Michigan has been fairly open about this whole process, especially Jim Harbaugh. If you're a player and you come up to him and ask him what's going on, he's going to tell you that he's staying. So as far as any long-term damage, I mean, maybe, but I highly doubt it. I mean, of course, opposing programs are going to use this as negative recruiting fodder, but they always have. I mean, since the day he arrived in Ann Arbor, people are using the NFL against him. So, maybe you might have a little bit more tangible evidence the past 2 years, but I don't expect this to be a root issue for the 2024 recruiting class. I mean, it's already off to a really great start and has an opportunity to get even better moving forward. And, now that Harbaugh's in place, I think a couple of dominoes could be able to fall here. So, I think looking back on this, will probably be a blip on the radar in the 24 class, but I don't think there's going to be any long-term damage done.
I have to tell you, with today being the deadline for underclassmen to declare for the NFL draft, and with Michigan getting that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I mean, it's about like National Signing Day, Christmas, and your birthday all in one day. And that's what Jim Harbaugh comes over the top here late, and we're going to find out that he's back. I mean, this is a great day for Michigan. The only thing that I look at the whole process, so where of course they're going to use, and we'll see what that buyout is. That'll be pretty interesting if we're able to look at the details of that contract, whether you say that would be something, that's going to come up this time next year or not. But I think the thing that a lot of people, and even some Michigan fans, you're going to wonder about Jim Harbaugh's word. And when Carolina, there was the conversation with the owner, and say, well, that was just a phone call. Even people say, well, what do you think they were talking about? That was an interview. But you could say, hey, that wasn't an interview. That was just a conversation. But then there was an interview with the Denver Broncos, which does go back to when he said this was going to be a one-time thing. I know that will be used against him. And so Michigan fans are saying, oh, look, you're not a person of your word. You think that is more was his agent's idea? Do you think he'll address that? I know that's asking you for some speculation, and not something that but how did you see that situation with the interview?
Yeah, I personally saw that, and a lot of people I speak with saw that kind of as a leverage play by the agent. I don't think any serious candidate in the year 2023 is going to have a Zoom interview with an NFL team with that, not A, either flying out to the facilities, or B, having the franchise fly out to you to interview in person. So that kind of gave me a sense that, maybe this isn't as serious as we think it is, because, last year with Minnesota, he flew out to Minnesota and spoke to people face to face. So you can kind of say that, it's different from last year. In regards to this being a one-time thing comment that he made last year, I mean, you can technically say it still was a one-time thing, because he was having some very vague conversations with NFL teams. He wasn't necessarily getting into the the thick of things. So, we'll see. I mean, either way, it's all semantics at this point. I mean, yeah, his words were probably used against him, but the most important thing and the most important end game for this whole situation is that Jim Harbaugh is staying, and yeah, maybe it'll be a yearly thing where the talk comes up, but it seems like every year right on the dot there'll be a Jim Harbaugh to NFL story done by reporters, and we all know how Harbaugh likes to draw clicks. So again, I'll be really curious to see what the buyout looks like in this new contract. That'll also play a role into things. If it's a pretty big buyout, I would suggest that his interest in seeing this out will it'd be pretty strong. So yeah, I mean, maybe he does address it, maybe he doesn't. I don't know. I mean, not necessarily knowing Jim Harbaugh, but knowing what Jim Harbaugh's liked in the media, I don't know how deep he's going to get into this thing, but I think knowing his canned responses in the past, he's going to point to previous statements to say that he wasn't going anywhere, and what else do I need to do to show that I'm staying? And I guess in a sense is fair, but he has been flying a little close to the sun at a couple of points, and he's running out. I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, he's staying. None of this really matters. He's going to get a good deal here, whether it's tomorrow or a couple of days in the future. But yeah, big win for Michigan to get him back, and to get all those other guys back over the weekend too. Huge. And I will say one thing on that too. My mindset coming out of the weekend, those guys weren't coming back to an unknown situation. Those guys could have made millions in the NFL, and didn't need to come back to Michigan and come back to a situation where they wouldn't know who the coach was. I mean, I don't think that doesn't make any sense. So I think they had a pretty good idea of what Harbaugh was going to do. And obviously they spoke to him before making this decision. So that was kind of another tip off for me that, maybe this stuff isn't as, as emotional as it needs to be. You just need to look at straight down the middle and take people for their word. And to Harbaugh's credit, he's been a man of his word, and that's kind of the one thing that we've relied on too, is that, he's stuck to what he said he's going to do. So here we are, and let's move forward to 23.
Yeah, you say all that, and I don't know how long we could say. I guess I could look back and place at how many days this has been going on, but you had a bit of confidence. Whoever you're like, I know you won't reveal all your sources here. I'm not even going to ask you to, but it kind of felt like you had a direct line to the North Pole. With just the confidence that you were showing with everything that ended up happening with this, you never were wavering. Even like there were times where, I admit it again, I was wavering. Now, you mentioned that contract. You think all of the things that you talk about in there, like Jim Harbaugh, possibly the highest paid coach in the Big Ten, Jim Harbaugh, maybe one of the highest paid coaches in the country, his assistants, this, I don't know, talked about, I don't know if you talked about it specifically, some like this NIL deal that was wrapped into this potentially, and then the buyout. I mean, those are a lot of different points. Any thoughts on any of those kind of things?
Yeah, I think my expectation now is that Harbaugh is going to be paid as the top coach in the Big Ten. I mean, he's coaching like it right now anyway, and he deserves it. I don't think he necessarily, I mean, you could obviously make an argument for back in 2020 when he had his pay slashed after his renegotiated deal. But I think he deserves to be paid, not just in the Big Ten, but in the top of college football. I think he's coaching like one right now. The program is in a great spot. It's going to be even greater, in this season with everyone coming back. So, I think he deserves to be paid like such. And I think my expectation too is that the assistant salary pool is going to increase as well, which again, deserved. And credit to Harbaugh for keeping his guys in place. You know, that's 2 years in a row without any major shakeups. And obviously, it's still early in the offseason. Things can change. Maybe they will, maybe they will not. I'm not really sure. But, you know, keeping your nucleus intact in this day and age where people are jumping ship, you know, at any sign of an increased dollar amount is really important. And I think, you know, it's going, and obviously Harbaugh will repay guys for showing loyalty as well. And that's kind of a big, important thing to him too. So, yeah, that'll be an increase. NIL isn't necessarily going to be included in his contract language, but there'll likely be some assurances there. And, you know, they've already started that process, you know, with Ward releasing that statement a couple of weeks ago, recognizing a handful of NIL collectives that fans should direct funds to. You know, I think, yeah, I'm just reading this comment on the phone here. Thanks, Trevor. I appreciate that. Yeah, maybe later when it's not raining. I don't want to crash it, but gotta be safe and smart. But yeah, I think there's going to be NIL insurances, and Ono, Santa Ono has proven to be, you know, an enthusiastic leader and willing to, you know, play the NIL game a little bit. Not necessarily play a game, but willing to take it a step further within the rules, of course. So, yeah, there's going to be and the buyout. You know, we talked about it briefly. That's going to be a big one there. You know, I'm going to be really curious to see what that buyout number looks like. I don't think it really matters when it comes down to it. I think Jim Harbaugh is staying for the long haul. I think this will probably be his you know, final, probably one of his, if not the final deal. If you add on the 5-year deal he signed last year, if there's going to be an addition, you're going to be talking about, you know, another 10 years or so. So, yeah, I think some assurances with an NIL is going to be a good thing. You know, the buyout might be a factor, but I think at the end of the day, you know, getting this deal done, taking care of the assistants, paying Harbaugh like he should be paid, and showing him respect and that he's, you know, respected and wanted in Ann Arbor, I think is huge. And, you know, I can't say this is the end, but you know, if this deal is going like I expect it to, it'll be pretty close to the end. I mean, it'll be hard to, you know, see an NFL team wanting to come in and or him exploring NFL options when he has this good deal in hand. So, yeah, I guess we'll see again in 365 days, I suppose, but I hope we're not back in this position again next year.
Yeah, well, in some ways, you hope that you are back into the position, because the way things have gone these last 2 years, they've been so much fun for the people on the field, and maybe taking it a step or two farther. Let's look at some of these questions, and kind of gets into some of the things I was going to ask you, and just I think the people are hitting on it. DS is saying that Jim is playing chess. He's moving his pieces to get ahead of the curve for the NCAA and college football. He wants more money for his coaches and to keep his team. Jim knows a change is coming. I remember back in the summer when Jared Wengler was talking, and I don't know if he put out, it was a tweet or a Google Doc or something, and he said, you know, his idea of name, image, and likeness was that the Michigan players that stayed around and that deserved it were going to be rewarded more than the guys on the front end coming in 2 and 3 times to that tune. And that sounded pretty good, but you had to, you know, the proof was going to be in the pudding. And I think this weekend, the proof, you know, from that part of name, image, and likeness, we see it with all of, you know, from Corum. In years past, all of these guys would have gone pro. To bring 2 pro guards back, and Keegan and Zinter. Heck, in years past, I would have been surprised Sainra still, you know, if he would have gone. All of these starters from Jenkins, you go in there and you just keep going down the list. It's what Michigan was able to do in bringing these players back. Michael Barrett, another guy who started every game, the opener. I mean, an amazing weekend. You can't get. I don't know how much money these guys are getting, but name, image, and likeness was a huge factor in that. As much as, you know, we pulled apart and tease it, do all these other things. Whatever they did this weekend was huge. However they did it.
Yeah, no, and I think it's going to help with recruiting too. I think, when you talk about NIL, Michigan really didn't have anything tangible to show recruits. Like, they had a plan, they had an idea, but they didn't necessarily have anything tangible. They had many deals. Obviously, JJ doing things, and Blake Corum is obviously doing what Blake Corum does. Is just a good dude. But now you've got tangible evidence of 5-6 guys who could be NFL pros coming back, and I wouldn't say it's probably a 50-50 thing. I think part of it NIL does play into it, and I think the other part is the culture that Harbaugh's established too played a major factor in why these guys came back. But again, now if you're Harbaugh on the coaching staff, you can show these recruits, hey, with our NIL collectives, if you come play for us, you can get you could potentially, I should preface, potentially get this and this amount of money, if you work for it. And that's what NIL was supposed to be. It's not supposed to be, hey, we'll pay you $250,000 to come here and play for us. It's, hey, you could get this amount of money if you work hard for it through deals. So this pay-to-play stuff is, it's a legitimate issue that, teams just have to work around, because it's just with agents and all this stuff now, it's just, it's a nightmare. It's a logistical nightmare. But again, if you're Michigan and you're getting these NIL related questions, you can really, again, tangible evidence. You've got something that you can show, and now you can start building the blueprint and start building up from there. I mean, every year with this NIL stuff, and hopefully there's more fine tuning when it comes to rules and what you can and can't do, and have it be more open. You can really build it from year to year. And I think Michigan's going to do that, especially now that they're recognizing these NIL collectives, and people are aware of them, Valiant being one in particular, who did the One More Year Fund, which was a genius move in hindsight, genius then and genius now. So, it's, I mean, we'll see how it does with the 24 class. I think this class has a potential to be really good even without NIL. But I mean, they've got evidence now they can show these guys. So we'll see if that's effective.
You mentioned genius, and I want to show everybody this. I tell everybody every day, if you want to know what's going on with Michigan, you want to know what's going on with Jim Harbaugh, you want to know what's going on with Santa, you want to know what's coming out from the athletic department's office, recruiting, right down the line, this is where you need to go. The Maize and Blue Review, michigan.rivals.com. And Josh was out in front, a calm hand at the wheel, and was telling everybody how this was going to play out the whole time. And he was correct. So a pat on the back goes out to Josh. And having said, all that, there's also this thing about, never a dull minute at Michigan with the NCAA and Harbaugh catching this level 1 violation. How's that going to play out? It seems like it's going to play out for a long time. You feel like, for Michigan fans that think this is going to be a big deal, no big deal, how it's going to play into everything? Did you have a feel on that, Josh?
Yeah, I don't think it's this big, huge deal where, Michigan's going to get the death penalty or some major sanctions. I mean, it's not great. It's not a good look. I think it goes beyond more than just a burger. I will say that. I mean, Jim Harbaugh intentionally deceived the NCAA, and that's not a good look. And I can kind of understand why he would do that, considering they're coming after Michigan for really minute things. It's not really a big, I mean, you can't have illegal contact during a dead period during COVID. Like, that's not good. But at the same time, you've got Kansas out there faking classes for their guys, and they get off scot-free. So I'm not expecting, major sanctions, major, punishments for Michigan. I mean, there might be some, but that's maybe something that's negotiated through Michigan and NCAA. But, I'm expecting Michigan to stand behind Harbaugh and all that kind of stuff. And obviously the proof will be when the report comes out. It's going to show that it's, a little worse than just a hamburger, that this thing is over. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, the NCAA.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I was sort of.
No, you're fine.
Did it play into the length of this, of going into how this just whole, I don't know, I call it a drama again 2.0 with Harbaugh, and because this seemed like it could have been an easier negotiation. I don't know. What do I know about negotiations?
No. Yeah,
but it seemed like it could have been an easier negotiation. Like, hey, Ward sends one over. Jim doesn't like it. He sends it back. They do this a couple times. Maybe the president has to get in. You have your agent, but then you have to go out and do all the thing with the NFL, and you've got the NCAA. I mean, all of these things, a lot of balls in the air and a lot of different things. Why did it play out like this?
I wish I had the answer. I mean, you're totally right. This could have been done weeks ago. It could have been done months ago. A bit at the same time, just Harbaugh doesn't negotiate, doesn't talk about contracts and all that stuff through the season. So none of that stuff it would happen. So it all would have had to have happened as soon as the season was over. But yeah, I mean, this could have been done a lot sooner. Maybe the NCAA stuff kind of derailed it a little bit. I don't think it had that much of an impact, because it's not like this stuff was blindsiding Michigan. I mean, they were going to expect this notice of allegations to show up in their inbox eventually. But yeah, ultimately, I don't think this totally derailed the negotiations. But yeah, I mean, it was clear that, this, and it doesn't take a super smart person to know that this could have been done weeks ago, that it didn't have to be, it didn't have to take this long, and it didn't have to, take Harbaugh reaching out to the Carolina Panthers and speaking with the Broncos via Zoom to get a deal like this done, or get him to stay, or recommitment, or whatever you want to call it. So, I mean, yeah, the process was exhausting. And again, I hope this doesn't happen again next year. But, no man can tell the future, right? No man knows the future. That's the line that my favorite line I heard all year, or heard all season, I should say.
Apparently, unless your name is Santa, and then maybe you do. Mentioned, it doesn't take a super smart person. So, one of the things that I'm sure that everybody's looking at when they see this, whether they're reading the Maize and Blue Review or wherever they're finding their information on, where you see that it was the president. And I just wanted to ask you, and I'll just read it again. This is what Santa Ono, Michigan president tweeted out, that he had got off the phone with Coach Harbaugh, and Jim shared with me the great news that he's going to remain as the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines. That is fantastic news that I have communicated to our athletic director, Ward Manuel. So Ward Manuel, the news didn't go to Ward Manuel. It went upstairs to the president. What's that mean to you? Is there something?
I mean, at face value, it doesn't look great. I mean, if we're taking this at face value, and if we're taking it literally, I mean, I guess if you want to go by chain of command, I guess, technically the president is the boss, is the boss's boss. So, I mean, we'll see what happens with this whole thing. But yeah, I mean, the fact that, Ward wasn't told first isn't exactly the most flattering look. And that statement isn't exactly flattering. And I'm not even suggesting that was done on purpose, but again, optics are optics, and Ward Manuel has taken a bit of a hit on social media throughout this whole process. And, this doesn't necessarily help. So we'll see what happens. It's not a great look, but again, I think Michigan fans should be extremely, extremely happy with having Santa Ono, as the president. I mean, talk about a breath of fresh air, just from everything that he's done from his arrival compared to what Mark Schlissel did, which is basically nothing. It's just awesome to see. And having a president that cares about athletics and understands the importance of athletics and understands good leaders of athletic programs are important. That's, I wouldn't necessarily say he was the difference maker here, but I mean, he played a huge role, and I dread to think what could or could not have happened if he wasn't involved or was not on campus. So, just a great breath of fresh air, and just a great asset for this university, not just athletics too, for academics, and just, with student relations as a whole. I mean, this guy is just such a personable guy. Just an excellent ambassador for the university itself. And he was huge in getting Harbaugh over the finish line for sure.
Yeah, it's Josh Henske, the publisher of the Maize and Blue Review. I'm Dennis Fithen. We're talking about the big news of the day, and that's Jim Harbaugh is coming back to coach at Michigan. And I was thinking about what's next for the Wolverines, and if we'll hear from Jim Harbaugh just over 2 weeks. We're sitting here on the 16th. It'll be February 1st, and the first Wednesday of February is National Signing Day. It used to be where the coaches would have a press conference. He might just talk. I think just mine. That's the way sometimes he does it. He just talks with John Jansen. So I'm not sure. I mean, when we're going to hear or see Jim Harbaugh again, that would be a nice time, it seems to me. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I don't think he's spoken to the media on signing day for probably going on 5 years now. It's been a long time since he's done a signing day press conference. So, I mean, I would not be surprised if we heard from him during spring football, like the first press conference of spring football. I mean, maybe someone gets him, out in public. Maybe he talks to Brad Galley from Channel 7. I mean, who knows? But in a public setting, in a media press conference type setting, I wouldn't be at all surprised if we don't see him again until spring ball, which, it is what it is. I mean, if he was planning to stay the whole time, he won't really have anything to say, but a lot of people have questions, and rightfully so. So I'll be curious to see how he approaches, whenever he decides he wants to talk.
I'm sending him an email. I think he should come on the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon.
Yeah.
Michigan football. It'd be perfect for you. It'd be perfect for us. Perfect for him. So, and he's got some questions that he should answer. So we'll work on that part. Yeah. February 1st now, Michigan fans, they don't have everything. I don't make it sound like you've had everything, but you've got close to that, with beating Ohio State and then winning the Big Ten and going to the college football playoff. I'd like to take it a step or two farther. And now getting some of these 5 stars or top 100 players over the next 2 weeks, that could be one of those next steps. There's a player or two that, people have already mentioned on here, like Harbaugh from the East Coast, whether he wants to be a defensive end or wide receiver, that would be, even, I don't know if you could even have more good news. Of course you can. That's something that we're keeping an eye on. Yeah. And you feel that, or how about Jaden Davis? Maybe he's not for this upcoming class, but he continues to get talked about. Those would be some of the next things that could happen that would even take this, into another stratosphere, Josh.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Nicholas Harbaugh is an interesting guy. He doesn't talk much, and his recruitment's kind of a bit of an unknown. I think Michigan is right there at the top for him. I think, it's like schools like Michigan, Maryland, obviously the in-state school, and South Carolina are probably the top 3. Maybe there might be, 1 or 2 others, but he's an interesting guy, and I'm not really ready to say what he's going to do either way, because I don't really know, to be honest. So that'll be something that'll become more apparent once the second signing day comes up, and that's going to be coming up fairly quickly. So he's doesn't have much time left to decide. But Jaden Davis on the flip side, Jaden Davis I feel much better about, and I have for quite some time. He came out recently, spoke to our Adam Gorney during I think it was the Under Armour Bowl or one of the All-America Bowls he was at. He said that he's ready to get this recruiting process done, And he kind of wanted to wait and see, let the dust settle on this Harbaugh situation, because he said that if he's going to Michigan, he wants to play for Harbaugh. He doesn't want to play for another coach. Well, Jayden has his answer now, and I think I highly, highly doubt that Harbaugh left the Davis camp in the dark this whole time. So, they've probably had their answer for some time. Now it's public. There's been talk that Davis wanted to get this done in December. That didn't happen. He pushed it back to January. Now we're, halfway through January, and there's a chance now with Harbaugh back that he could decide to wrap this up rather quickly. So we'll see. If he were to decide today, I'd say 100% he's picking Michigan. And and I still think that way, that he will pick Michigan. So getting that quarterback, especially a 5-star guy like Jayden Davis in the fold, is huge for momentum. Michigan's off to a really good start in 24 recruiting, and are in for a lot of talented players. So getting a guy like Davis in and kind of opening the floodgates, so to speak, of getting that stuff done, it'll be huge. And one more guy that hasn't been talked about that I do want to mention is Cameron Brandt. He's a defensive end, 2023 defensive end who's visiting on the 20th. He was committed to Stanford, didn't sign with Stanford during the early signing period. I have been getting word that there is some optimism around Michigan that he will commit, that he will be part of the program. So he's a guy I'm keeping my eye on as well for the second signing period, who could come late in the class. And I think he would be kind of a guy that would flip-flop. We thought Jamel Howard was going to commit during the early signing period, but didn't. And I think, it's coming down to who wants to commit first. So whoever commits first will take that spot. But right now it sure looks like Cameron Brandt's going to take that spot. So, there's a lot to like about Michigan's recruiting in 2024. Again, they just got to land guys. I think that was Michigan's biggest problem in 23, was that they just didn't land on their top tippy top guys. I mean, they landed on some guys at the end, but missed out on some guys, especially on the offensive line. So, it'll all start. The positivity will start if they can get Jayden Davis into the fold, for sure.
Oh, well, that's the kind of game of chicken I can get on board with, saying, hey, here's the scholarship. Which one of you guys are going to take it?
Yeah.
It's, the whole thing with Jayden Davis, 2 years you had J.J. McCarthy right there as the centerpiece of the class. And then it was Will Johnson. Yep. And last year, as you know, there's been a lot of hand-wringing about the class, especially with the way Michigan performed on the field. And if they were able to get Jayden Davis, I think that would send a lot of signals out about, hey, this is, this 5 stars, one of the top players in the country. Harbaugh's coming back. They're getting it done on the field. This is like that little last box that they might want to check. But I said all along, Josh, that it didn't seem like, I don't know how much it affected people. You can't tell. You have to go individual by player by player. But last year, the whole thing with the Vikings, Harbaugh was keeping people apprised, and however it worked, whether it was him or whether it was the Vikings. But people have said, "Oh, that's it cost Michigan momentum," and certainly the rivals were saying that he's going to go to the NFL. Yeah. But I always thought that had to do with the name, image, and likeness, and money up front. Why Michigan wasn't getting the very top players, and even if a player said that, you'd have to wonder. Like, of course, they're not going to say, "Well, yeah, I just wanted the money," because they might say, right. "Yeah, it was something with Harbaugh there." So I don't even know that. But I tell you, if we look at that buyout, and it's pretty big, and Harbaugh's coming back, and they get somebody like Jayden Davis. I mean, everything, all of the signs and all the markings will be there that Michigan's going to be strong on the field. They're going to be strong on the sideline as well, if it plays out like that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think maybe initially the Minnesota stuff hurt. But I think down the line, the 2023 stuff, it's absolutely was NIL was a factor, and I think a lot of it had to do with pay for play, and I don't necessarily blame Michigan for wanting to play that game. It's a dangerous game, so I mean, I would say NIL probably played a major factor in Michigan missing on guys in 23, but now that there's more of a sense of what's going on in 24. I think Michigan's going to have a much better class. And now they have, some stuff to work with. So I don't see this round of talk impacting anything. I mean, maybe again initially, maybe there was some initial nervousness, but I don't moving forward. I don't see this becoming an issue recruiting wise.
Well, there may be a few unfortunate people out there that are not subscribers to the Maize and Blue Review. And I did give you a pat on the back. If it wasn't every day, but every other day you were given an update and you were telling people, hey, you got to relax a little bit. As I'm paraphrasing what you had to say.
Yeah.
But I want to go back and it just reminded me with seeing Treppa putting up here that Michigan should go back to the college football playoffs next season. In the off season, I was looking at the schedule and I had Michigan going 11-1. And I thought, hey, that's pretty good, 11-1. But you came over the top and said you're predicting.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, and it's you get somebody predicting undefeated seasons. It's nice and everything, but then you went and some of the there was some local media and they wanted to get you on a list, and you didn't back down. You were the only one. You were like 12-0, let's go. So now, Josh, this is kind of something you have to think about again. I mean, are you gonna are you thinking about doubling down, putting your chips in there, doing it again? Do you see a loss? You're pretty hot right now when it comes to.
Yeah, I gotta ride these. I gotta ride these bets, right? No, I don't see them losing a game next year. Considering everyone that's coming back, I mean, yeah, they have a few holes. I mean, the special teams is going to be a question mark. I mean, you lose both your punter and kicker, a very good kicker, very reliable kicker. I mean, if that's your worst problem, I think you're doing okay. The cornerback 2 spot behind Will Johnson is going to be iffy. There's really no proven guy there, but again, every year you say there's no one proven. There's always someone that steps up. Michigan really loves a guy like Jaden McBurrows. They really like him. But maybe they go to the transfer portal for a proven guy. I don't know yet. We'll see. The portal window is still open. They got to see how some of their scholarship numbers shake out. But yeah, I don't see Michigan losing a game on this, with considering who they have back. They're a year older. The best offensive line in college football returns, arguably the best running back in college football returns. JJ McCarthy's back. I mean, this offense is going to be really, really good. Defense is going to be really, really good. So, another 13-0 season, I don't think is out of the question. And I don't think it's too ridiculous to say that your expectation this year is that you're going to run the table and head back to the college football playoffs. Hopefully they take it one step further than the past 2 years. I mean, I think that's their big, great white whale that they're chasing, is this, getting over the hump of getting past the semifinals. But again, this team is set up to be a college football playoff team again. And I don't see, a reason of why this could get derailed unless injuries again, knock on wood, that doesn't happen. But, yeah, I mean, 13-0, I don't think is out of the realm of possibility, and I'll stick by that, and that's what I'm going for.
Yeah, the only thing I see derailing them is if they start, on their first possession, get down there and start trying to call some wacky plays, fumble the ball inside the one, start throwing pick sixes, something like that. But other than that, maybe they've learned their lesson there. Great stuff. This was a day that people have been waiting for, that it comes on a day where you get a bunch of, I would say, unexpected news. I don't think it was all unexpected to you that Keegan and Zinter and, I was surprised that both of those guys came back.
Mm-hmm.
But to have it on a day where all those guys come back and then you get the news that Jim Harbaugh's coming back. It's a great day for Michigan football. Absolutely. That's for sure. Any final thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it. It's a great day for Michigan football, for Michigan fans. They've to see some good news continue for the fans is awesome to see. From last, take away the last 2 years, there hasn't been really a whole heck of a lot to cheer about outside of, recruiting wins and hypotheticals. But now you've got, something tangible that you can look back on. I think it's huge. So great day for Michigan, great day for the program, great day for the fans. Really good. And happy that the stuff I was reporting came to fruition and I wasn't being fed lies and I didn't look like I had an egg on my face at the end of it. So that's always a good day.
Well, you definitely you put yourself out there. So, and so I'm sure there's a little bit of relief when it comes down to
absolutely.
that. All right, just 5 minutes, you can relax, and then you'll have to start calling people about level 1 violations and things like that. I'm looking forward to Thursday night, Michigan heading to Maryland in a key basketball game, seeing if they can do what they did on New Year's Day to Maryland and get that victory. So a lot of fun, great job, and we'll just continue this momentum as well in the Mason Blue Review right in here in 23 and keep it going the rest of the night and into tomorrow and the rest of the year. Great job.
Absolutely. We'll keep it going.
There he is, Josh Henske. I'm Dennis Fithian. On this same feed tomorrow at 1:00, we'll be talking about the return of Jim Harbaugh. For Josh Henske, I'm Dennis Fithian. Thanks for watching this emergency podcast, a good emergency podcast. Have a great